विश्वासको आवाज, विश्वासको यो रेडियो साथी 98.6 मेगाहर्ज।
यो हो रेडियो साथी 98.6 मेगाहर्ज, आवाज विश्वासको।
बिहानको 10 बज्यो। यो समय घरमै बसेर सुनेर पढ्न मिल्ने कार्यक्रम रेडियो स्कुलको हो। नमस्कार हाम्रा प्रिय विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरू, तपाईहरू सबैजनालाई कार्यक्रम रेडियो स्कुलमा हामी हार्दिक स्वागत गर्दछौं। कार्यक्रम रेडियो स्कुल लकडाउनको बेला विद्यालय बन्द हुँदा शिक्षण सिकाइ क्रियाकलापबाट विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरू वञ्चित हुनु नपरोस् भनेर तयार पारिएको सिकाइ सहजीकरण कार्यक्रम हो। यो कार्यक्रम मेचीनगर नगरपालिकाको सहयोग एवं शिक्षक महासंघ प्याप्सन तथा एनप्याप्सन मेचीनगरको समन्वयमा उत्पादन गरिएको हो। भाइ बहिनीहरूलाई थाहै छ, हामी आइतबारदेखि शुक्रबारसम्म कक्षा 5 देखि 10 सम्मका भाइ बहिनीहरूका निमित्त रेडियो कक्षा प्रसारण गर्छौं। आज बुधबार विज्ञानबार, आज सबै तहहरूमा अंग्रेजी माध्यमको विज्ञान विषयको कक्षा सञ्चालन हुनेछ। 10 बजेदेखि 10:30 बजेसम्म कक्षा 5 र 6 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरूका लागि कक्षा सञ्चालन हुनेछ भने 10:30 बजेदेखि 11 बजेसम्म कक्षा 7 र 8 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरूका लागि कक्षा सञ्चालन हुँदा 11 बजेदेखि 11:30 बजेसम्म कक्षा 9 र 10 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरूका लागि कक्षा सञ्चालन हुनेछ। रेडियो साथी 98.6 मेगाहर्ज, रेडियो साथीको फेसबुक टाइमलाइन तथा अनलाइन रेडियोसाथी.com लगइन गरेर पनि कार्यक्रम सुन्न सक्नुहुनेछ। अबको पालोमा कक्षा 5 र 6 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरूका लागि विषय विज्ञ शिक्षकज्यूहरूबाट कक्षा सञ्चालन हुँदैछ। त्यसैले कापी कलम लिएर रेडियो सुन्दै टिपोट गर्दै पढौं है त।
Hello and good morning my dear class 5 students. My name is Kiran Limbu and I am your science teacher and I am from Thesis English Secondary School, Badakhal. I hope you are ready with your copy and pen to study. Okay, let us start. Our first chapter is invertebrates. Let us start with the definition of invertebrates. Our first question will be, what is invertebrates? I repeat, what is invertebrates? Answer, those animals which do not have the backbone in their body are called invertebrates. I repeat, those animals which do not have the backbone in their body are called invertebrates. For example, amoeba, paramecium, butterfly, octopus, cycon, euspongia are some examples of invertebrates. Now let us understand what the invertebrates means. You know, in our surrounding there are varieties of animals. They have different shapes, sizes, body structure and habitat. Some of the animals live on land, some live in water, some fly in the sky. Among them, some have backbone in their body and others do not. On the presence of the or absence of the backbone, or we call it as a vertebral column, animals can be classified into two groups. They are known as vertebrates and invertebrates. Animals like cow, goat, dog, cat and tiger have the backbone in their body. Such type of animals are called vertebrates. यानी कि पछाडिपट्टि ढाडमा हड्डी भएको, लामो हड्डी भएको एनिमल्सहरुलाई चाहिँ हामी vertebrates भन्छौं है। Similarly, animals like butterfly, prawn, earthworm, octopus, snails and roundworms do not have backbone in their body, so they are called invertebrates. यानी कि invertebrates को शरीरमा चाहिँ कुनै पनि हड्डी हुँदैन। जस्तै हामीमा हड्डी हुन्छ, त्यही भएर हामी vertebrates मा यौं। Similarly, जुन एनिमल्समा चाहिँ हड्डी हुँदैन त्यो खालको एनिमल्सहरुलाई चाहिँ हामी invertebrates भन्छौं। I repeat students once again the definition of invertebrates. Those animals which do not have the backbone in their body are called invertebrates. The examples of invertebrates are amoeba, hydra, octopus, butterfly, paramecium, cycon, etc. Now let us learn some of the features of invertebrates. So our next question will be, what are the features of invertebrates? The features of invertebrates are, number 1, invertebrates do not have backbone in their body. Number 2, they may be unicellular or multicellular. Here unicellular means the organism whose body is composed of only one cell. And multicellular means those organisms whose body is made up of 2 or more than 2 cells. Likewise, we are multicellular organisms and we are vertebrates. Similarly, the invertebrates, the organisms which do not have backbone in their body, they are also made up of single cell, or they are also made up of 2 or more than 2 cells. For example, butterfly is the invertebrates, but they are multicellular. In addition to this, amoeba is an invertebrates but are unicellular. They are made up of a single cell. In conclusion, invertebrates may be unicellular or multicellular. Number 3, they do not have developed body systems and organs. It means that all the animals which are invertebrates or which do not have backbone in their body systems are not well developed. There is a presence of the systems, but it is not as developed as ours. We are the vertebrates. Our nervous systems, skeletal system, muscular system, they are well developed. They are considered to be well developed system. ओ हाम्रोमा भएको जस्तो सिस्टम्सहरु चाहिँ इन्भर्टिब्रेट्समा हुँदैन. So they do not have developed body systems and organs. Number 4, some invertebrates have outer skeleton or hard protective coverings. It means that some of the invertebrates like snail, crab, they have hard skeleton outside their body. It does not mean they have bone. हड्डी हुन्छ भनेको होइन है. तिनीहरुको बाहिरपट्टि चाहिँ एउटा कभरिङ हुन्छ जुन चाहिँ एकदम दरो हुन्छ के. कुनै कुनै इन्भर्टिब्रेट्समा यस्तो पनि हुन्छ. Okay, once again, what are the features of invertebrates? Answer: the features of invertebrates are: number 1, invertebrates do not have backbone in their body. Number 2, they may be unicellular or multicellular. Number 3, they do not have developed body systems and organs. Number 4, some invertebrates have outer skeleton or hard protective coverings. In your house, you can observe your surrounding and find out any 10 invertebrates. Or you can more than find out 10 invertebrates, and you can note down in your copy, draw their figures, and you can hence find out what kind of animals are invertebrates. तिमीहरुले आफ्नो घर आँगन वरिपरि खेतबारीमा हेर्न सक्छौ पुतली देखेकोलाई यानी कि बटरफ्लाई. त्यसलाई पक्रेर हेर्दाखेरि चाहिँ तिमीहरु अब्जर्भ गर्न सक्छौ पुतलीको चाहिँ हड्डी हुँदैन के. हो त्यस्तो हड्डी नभएको अर्गानिजम्सलाई चाहिँ हामी इन्भर्टिब्रेट्स भन्छौं. जस्तै गडेउला यानी कि अर्थवर्म, अर्थवर्मको पनि हड्डी हुँदैन. सपोज अब अहिले असार लाग्न आटेको छ, खेतमा हामी भेटाउन सक्छौं गंगाटा यानी कि क्र्याब. तिनीहरुको बाहिरपट्टि दरो हुन्छ आउटर कभरिङ, तर त्यो हड्डी होइन है, तिनीहरुलाई हड्डी मानिदैन. हो यस्तो खालको अर्गानिजम्सलाई चाहिँ हामी के भन्छौं त भन्दाखेरि इन्भर्टिब्रेट्स भन्छौं. तर माछा त खाएको होला तिमीहरुले पक्कै पनि. माछा खाँदाखेरि तिमीहरुले हड्डी भेट्छौ क्या. हो त्यो हड्डी भएकोलाई चाहिँ फेरि हामी भर्टिब्रेट्स भन्छौं है. त्यो आज हामी पढ्दैनौं. ओके, नाउ all the organisms which do not have backbone in their body can also be classified into total 9 phylums. These invertebrates, they can also be classified according to the different characters. Okay, the questions becomes, what are the different phylums of invertebrates? Answer: the different phylums of invertebrates are: number 1, Protozoa; number 2, Porifera; number 3, Colelenterata; number 4, Platyhelminthes; number 5, Nemathelminthes; number 6, Annelida; number 7, Arthropoda; number 8, Mollusca; and number 9, Echinodermata. Once again, students, what are the different phylums of invertebrates? The different phylums of invertebrates are: number 1, Protozoa; number 2, Porifera; number 3, Colelenterata; number 4, Platyhelminthes; number 5, Nemathelminthes; number 6, Annelida; number 7, Arthropoda; number 8, Mollusca; and number 9, Echinodermata. Okay, let us start with the first phylum. Phylum number 1, Protozoa. Let us start with the definition. What is phylum Protozoa? The question is once again, what is phylum Protozoa? Answer: phylum Protozoa is a group of primitive animals which are unicellular, eukaryotic, and microscopic in nature. I repeat, students, once again, phylum Protozoa is a group of primitive animals which are unicellular, eukaryotic, and microscopic in nature. Here, unicellular means the organisms whose body is composed of only one cell. Eukaryotic means those organisms which possess cell, and microscopic means those organisms which can only be observed with the help of the microscope. They are very small, so that it must be magnified with the help of the microscope in order to see. We cannot see the microscopic organism. It means the animals which fall under the phylum Protozoa cannot be seen with the help of our naked eyes. An instrument called microscope must be used. So, once again, phylum Protozoa is a group of primitive animals which are unicellular, eukaryotic, and microscopic in nature. Unicellular means those organisms made up of single cell. Eukaryotic means those organisms which have nuclei, and microscopic means those organisms which can only be seen with the help of the microscope, cannot be seen with the help of our naked eyes. The example of animals that comes under phylum Protozoa are amoeba, paramecium, euglena, plasmodium, etc. Once again, example of phylum Protozoa are amoeba, paramecium, euglena, plasmodium, etc. Now there are some characteristics of Protozoa. The characteristics of Protozoa are: the animals of phylum Protozoa are found in air, water, soil, and inside the body of other animals. Next, these animals also cause different diseases to animals and plants. These animals breathe through general body surface and reproduce by fission. These animals live inside the body of other animals and absorb their food. So, they are also called endoparasites. Once again, the characteristics of animals which belongs to phylum Protozoa are: number 1, the animals of the phylum Protozoa are found in air, water, soil, and inside the body of other animals. Number 2, they also cause different diseases to animals and plants. Number 3, they breathe through general body surface and reproduce by fission. Here, fission is a type of asexual reproduction in which one organism divides into 2 or more new organisms. एउटै अर्गानिजम चाहिँ टुक्रिएर चाहिँ दुईटा अर्गानिजम फर्म भयो भने त्यस्तो खालको प्रोसेसलाई हामी फिसन भन्छौं है. Characteristics number 5th, these animals live inside the body of other animals and absorb their food. So, they are also called endoparasites. यानी कि phylum Protozoa भित्र पर्ने एनिमल्सहरु चाहिँ आफै खाना बनाउँदैन के प्लान्ट्सहरु जस्तो. यिनीहरु चाहिँ अर्काको बडी भित्र बस्छन् अनि त्यही बडी भित्रबाट आफ्नो खाना यिनीहरुले एब्जर्ब गर्छन्. त्यसैले यिनीहरुलाई endoparasites पनि भनिन्छ. Okay. Now let's go to the next phylum. Second phylum is phylum Porifera. First, what is phylum Porifera? I repeat, what is phylum Porifera? The answer is phylum Porifera is a group of multicellular and marine animals which have numerous pores in their body. I repeat, students, phylum Porifera is a group of multicellular and marine animals which have numerous pores in their body. The pores in their body are known as ostia. The pores present in the body of animals belonging to phylum Porifera is known as ostia. O-S-T-I-A, ostia. These animals are also known as sponges. I repeat, these animals are also known as sponges. यो phylum Porifera मा पर्ने एनिमल्सहरुलाई हामी स्पन्जेस पनि भन्छौं है. S-P-O-N-G-E-S, sponges. Okay. Now there are some characteristics of animals belonging to phylum Porifera. The characteristics of phylum Porifera are: number 1, the animals of phylum Porifera cannot move. I repeat, the animals belonging to phylum Porifera cannot move and remain attached with different substratum like rocks, cells, etc. तिमीले देखेको होला कुनै कुनै भित्तामा प्लान्ट्सहरु पलाउँछन्, रुखमा पनि अर्को एउटा रुखमा अर्को प्लान्ट्सहरु पलाइरहेका हुन्छन्. हो त्यस्तै यो phylum Porifera मा पर्ने एनिमल्सहरु चाहिँ एक ठाउँबाट अर्को ठाउँ मुभ गर्न सक्दैनन्. त्यसैले यिनीहरु कुनै न कुनै रक्समा सेल्समा टाँसिएर बसेको हुन्छ क्या. दिस इज द फर्स्ट क्यारेक्टरिस्टिक्स. दे क्यान नट मुभ एन्ड रिमेन अट्याच्ड विथ डिफ्रेन्ट सबस्ट्राटम लाइक रक्स, सेल्स, एसेट्रा. नम्बर 2, they respire through general body surface. Number 3, they do not have well developed organs and systems. Once again, the characteristics of the animals belonging to phylum Porifera are: number 1, they cannot move and remain attached with different substratum like rocks, cells, etc. Number 2, they respire through general body surface. Number 3, they do not have well developed organs and systems. The examples of the animals belonging to phylum Porifera are Cycon, Spongilla, Euspongia, etc. I repeat, some examples of animals belonging to phylum Porifera are Cycon, Spongilla, Euspongia, etc. Now let's go to third phylum, phylum Colenterata. First, let's know what is phylum Colenterata. Answer is, phylum Colenterata is a group of animals that have a large hollow cavity in their body. I repeat, students, phylum Colenterata is a group of animals that have a large hollow cavity in their body. This hollow cavity is called colenteron. यो फाइलम कोलेन्टेराटामा पर्ने एनिमल्सहरुको बडीमा चाहिँ एउटा ठूलो हलो खाली स्पेस हुन्छ उनीहरुको बडी भित्र हो. त्यो स्पेसलाई चाहिँ हामी कोलेन्टेरन भन्छौं है. द एक्जाम्पल्स अफ एनिमल्स बिलोंगिङ टु फाइलम कोलेन्टेराटा आर हाइड्रा, सी एनिमोन, कोरल्स, एसेट्रा. There are some characteristics of phylum Colenterata. The characteristics of phylum Colenterata are: number 1, they have a mouth surrounded by the tentacles. अब tentacles भने के हो त भन्दाखेरि tentacles are long flexible organs which are used in locomotion and to catch the prey. जस्तै अक्टोपसको तिमीले देखेको छ नि अलग अलग हात जस्तो हो. यो फाइलम कोलेन्टेराटामा पर्ने एनिमल्सहरुको पनि अक्टोपसको जस्तै टेन्टाकल्स हुन्छ. ठ्याक्कै सेम हैन, त्यस्तै त्यस्तै खालको बडी अर्गन्स हुन्छ जसले चाहिँ यो एनिमल्सहरुलाई एक ठाउँबाट अर्को ठाउँ मुभ गर्न अनि आफ्नो दुश्मनहरुलाई पक्डिन, खानालाई पक्डिन मद्दत गर्छ. These are called tentacles. Once again, characteristics number 1, they have a mouth surrounded by the tentacles, and tentacles are long flexible organs which are used in locomotion and to catch the prey. Characteristics number 2, these animals are found both in sea water and fresh water. Characteristics number 3, they breathe through general body surface and reproduce by budding and regeneration. Here, budding is a type of asexual reproduction in which a small bud develops into the parent body. अब यो बडिङ भनेको चाहिँ के हो त फेरि? हो जस्तै तिमीहरुले प्लान्ट्समा पनि देखेको होला, प्लान्ट्स काट्दाखेरि त्यहाँबाट नयाँ मुना पलाउँछ है. त्यो मुनाले ठुलो भइसकेपछि चाहिँ त्यसलाई काटेर चाहिँ अर्को ठाउँ रोप्दाखेरि त्यो काटेको पार्टबाट चाहिँ नयाँ प्लान्ट्स पलाउँछ नि हैन? हो त्यस्तै. इन द सिमिलर वे यो अर्गानिजम्सको पनि बडीबाट त्यसरी नै एउटा पार्ट्स पलाउँछ जसलाई हामी बड भन्छौं. हो यो बडबाट चाहिँ छुट्टिएर पछि नयाँ अर्गानिजम बनिन्छ क्या. This process is called budding. Budding is a type of asexual reproduction in which a small bud develops into the parent, and regeneration is also a type of asexual reproduction in which the body parts of an organism regenerates to form a new organisms. For example, तिमीहरुले गणेउला देखेको होला. गणेउलालाई चाहिँ तिमीहरुले बिचमा काट्दियो भने त्यो मरिहाल्दैन क्या. त्यसको बडी पार्ट्स रिजेनेरेट हुन्छ अनि त्यो दुईटा अलग अलग अर्थमा हुन्छ. हो यो प्रोसेसलाई चाहिँ हामी रिजेनेरेसन भन्छौं. हाइड्रा, सी एनिमोन्स, कोरल्स जस्ता एनिमल्सहरु चाहिँ बडिङ र रिजेनेरेसनबाट चाहिँ रिप्रोड्युस गर्छन्. द नेक्स्ट क्यारेक्टरिस्टिक्स इज okay, that's all the characteristics. Okay, once again, the characteristics of the organisms belonging to phylum Colenterata are: Number 1, they have a mouth surrounded by the tentacles. Tentacles are long flexible organs which are used in locomotion and to catch the prey. Number 2, these animals are found both in sea water and fresh water. Number 3, they breathe through general body surface and reproduce by budding and regeneration. Some examples of phylum Coelenterata are Hydra, sea anemone, corals. Now let's go to the fourth phylum, phylum Platyhelminthes. Phylum Platyhelminthes. Let's know what is phylum Platyhelminthes. The answer is phylum Platyhelminthes is a group of animals having flat and elongated body. I repeat, students, phylum Platyhelminthes is a group of animals having flat and elongated body. They are also known as flatworms. Platyhelminthes, phylum Platyhelminthes मा पर्ने organisms लाई हामी flatworms पनि भन्छौं. Some examples of the phylum Platyhelminthes are tapeworm, liver fluke, planaria, etc. There are specific or salient features or characteristics of this phylum Platyhelminthes also. The characteristics of phylum Platyhelminthes are: their body may be segmented or unsegmented. Number 2, these animals are found as parasites in the human body of other animals like pig, goat, human, buffalo, etc. Here, parasite means those organisms which suck blood from the body of their host. मतलब phylum Platyhelminthes मा पर्ने organisms हरु चाहिँ अरुको शरीरको ब्लड सक गरेर ब्लड खून चुसेर चाहिँ आफ्नो जीवन आफ्नो खाना बनाउँछन्. यस्तो खालको अर्गानिजम्स चाहिँ हामी प्यारासाइट्स भन्छौं है. फर एक्जाम्पल लिभर फ्लुक, प्लेनेरिया र टेपवर्म जस्ता अर्गानिजम्स चाहिँ एनिमल्सको क्या पिग, गोट, ह्युमन, बफेलो अरुको बडीको ब्लड सक गरेर चाहिँ आफ्नो जीवन यापन गर्छन्. थर्ड क्यारेक्टरिस्टिक्स इज दे हैव कंप्लीट डाइजेस्टिभ सिस्टम. फोर्थ, they are bisexual animals. Bisexual means both the sex organs are present in the same body. For example, एउटै बडीमा चाहिँ केटाको पनि केटीको पनि सेक्स अर्गन्स भएको अर्गानिजम्सलाई चाहिँ हामी बाइसेक्सुअल भन्छौं है. हामी चाहिँ युनिसेक्सुअल हो, हामी बाइसेक्सुअल होइन है, किनकि हाम्रो केटा जाति र केटी जाति अलग-अलग हुन्छ. बट the organisms belonging to phylum Platyhelminthes are bisexual animals. They have both the sex organs, male sex organs and female sex organs in the same body. Okay, once again, the characteristics of phylum Platyhelminthes are: number 1, their body may be segmented or unsegmented. Number 2, these animals are found as parasites in the body of other animals like pig, goat, human, buffalo, etc. Parasites means those organisms which suck blood from the body of their host. Number 4, they have complete digestive system. Number 5, they are bisexual animals. Next phylum, phylum Platyhelminthes. Phylum number 5, phylum Nemathelminthes. Phylum number 5, phylum Nemathelminthes. Okay, let's know what is phylum Nemathelminthes. Answer is phylum Nemathelminthes is a group of animals that have round, long, cylindrical and unsegmented body. Phylum Nemathelminthes is a group of animals that have round, long, cylindrical and unsegmented body. Some examples of phylum Nemathelminthes are Ascaris, also known as roundworms, hookworm, pinworm, etc. I repeat, some examples of the phylum Nemathelminthes are Ascaris, also known as roundworms, hookworm, pinworm, etc. Phylum Nemathelminthes are commonly known as roundworms. Phylum Nemathelminthes लाई चाहिँ हामी commonly roundworms भनेर पनि बोलाउँछौं, चिन्छौं. Now, the characteristics of the animals belonging to phylum Nemathelminthes are: number 1, most of the animals of this phylum live as parasites in the intestine of the warm-blooded animals. Like I told before, parasites are those organisms which suck blood from their host, from the body of their host. Parasites are those organisms which suck the blood from the body of their host. Number 2, they have a complete digestive system with mouth and anus. Number 3, they are unisexual animals. It means that single body possesses single sex organs only. एउटा बडी मतलब मेल र फिमेल बडी चाहिँ अलग अलग हुन्छन्. Let's go to the next phylum, sixth phylum, phylum Annelida. The sixth phylum is phylum Annelida. Let's know what is phylum Annelida. Phylum Annelida is a group of animals that have soft, cylindrical, elongated and segmented body. I repeat, students, phylum Annelida is a group of animals that have soft, cylindrical and elongated and segmented body. Some examples of the phylum Annelida are earthworm, leech, clamworm, etc. There are some specific characteristics of this phylum Annelida. The characteristics of phylum Annelida are: mostly these animals are found in soil and water. Number 2, some animals of the phylum Annelida are parasites and others are free living. Number 4, they have moist body surface, so they cannot live in dry environment. Next characteristics, they have a complete digestive system. Next characteristics, these animals have both male and female sex organs in the same body. It means they are unisexual organisms. Once again, the characteristics of the animals belonging to phylum Annelida are: mostly these animals are found in soil and water. Number 2, some animals of this phylum Annelida are parasites and others are free living. Number 6, they have moist body surface, so they cannot live in the dry environment. Next, they have a complete digestive system. Next, these animals have both male and female sex organs in the same body, so they are called bisexual organisms. They are bisexual organisms. Next is phylum Arthropoda. Let's know what is phylum Arthropoda. Phylum Arthropoda is a group of animals that have jointed legs. Some examples of phylum Arthropoda are ant, butterfly, prawn, crab, millipede, etc. The characteristics of phylum Arthropoda are: number 1, their body is divided into head, thorax and abdomen. Number 2, they have a hard exoskeleton. Number 3, they are found in a wide range of habitat including air, water and soil. Number 4, they are unisexual animals. Number 5, they have developed digestive and nervous system. I repeat once again, students, the characteristics of the animals belonging to phylum Arthropoda are: number 1, their body is divided into head, thorax and abdomen. Number 2, they have a hard exoskeleton. Number 3, they are found in a wide range of habitat including air, water and soil. Number 4, they are unisexual animals. Number 5, they have developed digestive system and nervous system. Number 8, phylum Mollusca. What is phylum Mollusca? Phylum Mollusca is a group of animals that have soft, muscular and moist body. I repeat, phylum Mollusca is a group of animals that have soft, muscular and moist body. Some examples of phylum Mollusca are octopus, unio, garden snail, slug, etc. Now, the characteristics of phylum Mollusca are: number 1, their soft body is usually protected by a hard outer shell. Number 2, they are found in the moist shell or in water. Number 3, they have muscular feet to move on the land and arms to move in water. Number 4, they have developed digestive and nervous system. Once again, the characteristics of phylum Mollusca are: number 1, their soft body is usually protected by a hard outer shell. Number 2, they are found in moist soil or in water. Number 3, they have muscular feet to move on the land and arms to move in the water. Number 4, they have developed digestive and nervous system. Now, the last and ninth phylum is phylum Echinodermata. Phylum Echinodermata. What is phylum Echinodermata? Phylum Echinodermata is a group of animals that have rough and spiny skin. I repeat, phylum Echinodermata is a group of animals that have rough and spiny skin. Some examples are sea urchin, sea cucumber, starfish, etc. Sea urchin, sea cucumber, starfish, etc. The characteristics of phylum Echinodermata are: number 1, they are only found in seawater. Number 2, they move with the help of tube feet. Number 3, they have developed body system. Number 4, their body may be star-shaped, cylindrical or globular. Once again, students, the characteristics of phylum Echinodermata are: they are only found in seawater. Number 2, they move with the help of the tube feet. Number 3, they have developed body systems. Number 4, their body may be star-shaped, cylindrical or globular. Okay, our chapter is completed. You can write this in your copies and read. You can also observe at your surrounding and find out the different invertebrates, draw their figures, write their names, and you can research it. If you have any confusions regarding this lesson, you can call or comment in the Facebook page of Radio Sathi. And that's all for today. Stay home, stay safe.
भाइ बहिनीहरूलाई फेरि स्वागत छ कार्यक्रम रेडियो स्कुलमा। तपाईहरूले भर्खरै कक्षा 5 र 6 का लागि तयार पारिएको कक्षा सुनिसक्नु भएको छ। कक्षा सुनिसकेपछि तपाईका केही प्रश्न वा जिज्ञासा भएमा रेडियो साथीको फोन नम्बर 023 563 037 मा फोन गरेर प्रश्न टिपाउन सक्नुहुनेछ वा हाम्रो फेसबुक पेजमा समेत प्रश्नहरू पठाउन सक्नुहुनेछ। अर्को कक्षामा भाइ बहिनीहरूको जिज्ञासाको समाधान गर्ने प्रयास गरिनेछ। अबको पालोमा कक्षा 7 र 8 का भाइ बहिनीहरूका लागि तयार पारिएको कक्षाहरू सञ्चालन गर्दै कक्षा 7 र 8 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरू कापी कलम लिएर तयार रहनुहोस् है त।
Namaste and welcome to you all in this educational radio program conducted by Radio Sathi 98.6 MHz. Today you are connected with me. I am Krishna Pokhrel from Mesinagar 6 Kankarbita and I am a science teacher from Arunday Secondary School, Mesinagar 6 Kankarbita, Jhapa. Okay. In our previous class, I have given you some homework related to measurement of different kind of things. Suppose I have given you some homework related to convert the following and some other things. I hope you all have done that. In our previous lesson, we have known about length, mass, time, development of SI unit, why SI unit is important for us and why different other units is important for us. Okay. Now, I would like to teach you the today's class. Our today's class will be related to area, volume, and regular object, irregular object, and different other things. Area. Let's go to the area. The area is a space occupied by the body in a plane surface. Let's write down, students. Area is a space occupied by the body in a plane surface. What do you mean by this? Suppose area, you have a paper and pen with you, I hope so, because in each and every class you should be aware about your writing process and your listening process. Whenever you write, you draw one circle, you draw one rectangle, you draw one square on the piece of paper, then some parts of that paper will be occupied by that square. Some part of the paper will be occupied by that rectangle. Please draw one rectangle of any size on the piece of paper and shade that rectangle completely from inside. Okay, this is known as the area of rectangle. Similarly, you can draw a triangle, you can draw a square, you can draw any other regular object and you can find the area. And the SI unit of area is meter square. We call it as a square meter also, meter square. Then we call meter square, we know this as a SI unit of area. There are some other units called centimeter square. Now I would like to give you a relation between meter square and centimeter square. 1 meter square equals to 10,000 centimeter square. Please note down this important unit in your copy. 1 meter square equals to 10,000 centimeter square. Okay, let's go to the another subtopic, regular and irregular object. Regular object. You write down regular object. Now write the definition of regular object. The objects that have definite geometrical shapes and sizes. The objects that have definite geometrical shapes and sizes are called the regular objects. Once I repeat, the objects that have definite geometrical shapes and sizes are called the regular objects. Spelling for definite is DEFINITE. DEFINITE, definite. Okay, now what does this definition mean? What do you mean by regular object? Suppose you have seen the geometrical shape like rectangle, square, cube, cuboid, different type of other thing, cone, cylinder. If your objects are in the proper shape of that, then you call it as a regular object. Suppose you have a cube, you have a cuboid, suppose you have a cylinder with you, with the shape of the cylinder, any kind of object. You can take one example of the dice, okay? You can take the example of dice, or you can take the example of dice of a Ludo, small, the dice cubic shape of that Ludo. In that, how many faces will be there? There will be 6 faces. That kind of object is known as a regular object. Suppose you have a cuboid, suppose you have a brick with you. Brick is an example of cuboid that have a regular shape, definite length, definite breadth, and definite height. Okay, that type of object is known as a regular object. Now we have already known about the definition, we have already known about the regular object. Now let's go towards the irregular object. Now, okay, before that, now how to measure the area of regular object? Regular object means those have a definite shape and size. Definite shape and size which have a well-known geometrical shapes. Now to find the area of regular object, we use a formula. For example, for finding the area of square, we need the formula called length multiply length. We call it as a length square, or we call it simply as a L square. That is the formula for area of square. Similarly, for finding the area of rectangle, we will take both length and breadth, because the side of rectangle are different. It have two different sides opposite to each other. So area of rectangle can be defined as length multiply breadth, L multiply B. Now after that, triangle. Area of triangle can be measured with the different other formula, but one basic formula for area of triangle is half multiply base multiply height. Half multiply base multiply height. And area of circle can be measured with the formula pi r square. Pi r square. I hope you are well known about the pi, okay? Pi r square. The value of pi is 22 divided by 7. 22 by 7. Now, let's go for the irregular objects. We see many objects in our surrounding which do not have any definite geometrical shape. Suppose whenever you see in and around, suppose you can take an example of your pen. Suppose the formation of pen is not any kind of geometrical shape. We cannot call it as a cylinder also, we cannot call it as a cone also, we cannot call it as cuboid, anything else. But this kind of objects also need to be measured because they have certain area. Suppose you can take the example of leaf of plant. Leaf of plant do not have a definite geometrical shape and size. So how to measure the area of this kind of object? Actually, this object is known as a irregular object. Okay. Let's write the definition of irregular object. The objects that do not have a definite geometrical shapes and sizes are called irregular objects. I repeat once again, the objects that do not have a definite geometrical shapes and sizes are called irregular objects. Alright, now we will know about the finding the area of irregular objects. Suppose if you have a graph paper, then we can see several small boxes on that graph paper. That one box is a small square of side 1 centimeter. So we can know that the one box area of one small box is 1 centimeter square. in your graph paper. If you have a graph paper, then you can see there. You can imagine if you don't have, because you have used your graph paper in class 6 and other several classes 5 also. Some of you have used that graph paper. Okay, now that 1 centimeter square, that is the small box of 1 centimeter square. Now if you want to find the area of irregular object, suppose if you want to find the area of a leaf of one flower, then bring the leaf of flower and place it on the graph paper. Okay, after placing the flower leaf on the graph paper, you draw the outer line on the flower or on the graph paper with the help of leaf of a flower. तो हामीले राखेको ग्राफ पेपरमा हामीले जुन फ्लावरको लिफ राख्छौं त्यसलाई हामीले बाहिर त्यसको आउटर सर्फेस चाहिँ हामीले ग्राफ पेपरमा हामीले with the help of pencil we need to draw it on the graph paper. हामीले त्यसको आउटर सर्फेस चाहिँ ग्राफ पेपरमा कोर्नु पर्ने हुन्छ र त्यसको आउटर सर्फेसले ग्राफ पेपरको बक्सलाई कभर गर्छ. त्यो अब कतिवटा बक्सलाई त्यसले कभर गर्यो, with the help of that we can take out the area of irregular object, because it is certainly a hard process, a little bit different process to then finding the area of regular object, because area of regular object have the definite shape and sizes, but irregular object they do not have any definite shape and sizes. So for finding area of irregular object we need a graph paper, and in graph paper whenever you have drawn the outer line of that leaf on the graph paper, after that actually you shade that graph paper with the help of pencil completely. Remove the leaf and shade the internal portion of that graph paper. Leaf र pencil को मददले हामीले बनाएको त्यो leaf को shape graph paper मा छापिएको छ र अब त्यो graph paper भित्र छापिएको leaf को shape भित्र हामीले सबै त्यसलाई shade गरौं एकचोटी. र अब त्यो सेट गरिसकेपछि त्यसले कतिवटा ग्राफ पेपरको स्क्वायर 1 सेन्टिमिटर स्क्वायरको बक्सलाई कम्प्लिटली सेट गरेको हुन्छ, कतिले त आधी गरेको हुन्छ, कतिले आधी भन्दा बढी गरेको हुन्छ. अब कसरी हामीले त्यसको एक्चुअल एरिया मेजर गर्न सक्छौं? हाउ वी कुड मेजर द एक्चुअल एरिया अफ सच काइन्ड अफ ऑब्जेक्ट्स? नाउ suppose if you have shaded a graph paper with the outline surface of a leaf, then if 5 boxes are completely shaded, then you write 5 over there. Okay, in a rough you write 5 over there. After that you see, you go on for other boxes which are halfly or more than half shaded. Okay, if you find any boxes to be shaded half or more than half, then you calculate that box as a one complete box. Suppose in my paper, if 3 boxes are half and completely half, in total 3 boxes are there which is halfly filled or completely filled, then I will add there 5 plus 3. 3 plus 3 I will add there, because 5 I have with the complete box and 3 box with more than half or actually half. Now after this, if any boxes are there which is shaded less than half, then we will not calculate it as a complete box. Now after this we can calculate the area of a leaf. अर्को एउटा सजिलो तरिका पनि म भाइ बहिनीहरुलाई बताउन गइरहेको छु. जुन हामीले फ्लावरको पत्ता लिएर हामीले ग्राफ पेपरमा सेट गर्यौं, त्यसको आउटलाइन सर्फेस बनाएर सेट गरिसकेपछि जुन बक्स कम्प्लिटली फिल भएको छ त्यो बक्समा एउटा पेन्सिलको मद्दतले त्यो सेट गरेको हल्का सेट गर्ने र त्यसको माथि राइट लगाउने, टिक गर्ने, त्यो चाहिँ कम्प्लिट बक्स हो. र जुन बक्सलाई आधी अथवा आधी भन्दा बढी सेट गरिएको छ त्यसलाई पनि राइट लगाउने, जुन बक्सलाई चाहिँ आधी भन्दा कम्ती छ, आधी कम्प्लिटली छैन भने त्यसलाई चाहिँ रङ गर्ने. त्यो रङ गरेको हामीले क्याल्कुलेट गर्दैनौं र राइट गरेकोलाई हामी क्याल्कुलेट गर्छौं. र मेरो ग्राफ पेपरमा 5 वटा बक्स चाहिँ कम्प्लिटली फिल भएको छ र 3 वटा बक्स चाहिँ मोर देन हाफ र एक्ज्याक्टली हाफ गरेर 3 वटा बक्स भएको छ. भनेपछि एउटा बक्स चाहिँ एक्ज्याक्टली हाफ भयो र दुईटा बक्स चाहिँ मोर देन हाफ भयो त्यो ग्राफ पेपरमा 1 सेन्टिमिटर स्क्वायरको. भने अब मेरो पेपरमा त्यो लिफको एरिया चाहिँ कति भयो त भन्दा 5 plus 3 equals to 8 सेन्टिमिटर स्क्वायर. 8 centimeter square. We will neglect other boxes which are filled less than half. Okay, now let's go to the volume. What do you mean by volume? Let's remember till now we have known about area, we have known about regular object, we have known about irregular object, we have known about the process of finding area of regular object, area of irregular object. Regular object by formula, irregular object with the help of graph paper. Okay, now volume. Let's write the definition of volume. Okay, be ready. The space occupied by substances, by any substances, you write there. The space occupied by any substances is called its volume. Okay, the space occupied by any substances is called its volume. Okay, let's know about this definition. What does this definition mean? यो definition ले के भन्छ भने कुनै पनि ठाउँमा केही स्पेस अकुपाई गर्नको लागि, स्पेस भनेको पेपरमा हैन, अब कुनै एयरमा अथवा कुनै मिडियममा हामीले कुनै स्पेस अकुपाई गर्छौं भने त्यसलाई चाहिँ हामी एउटा भोल्युम भन्न सक्छौं. सपोज फर एन एक्जाम्पल, in a container in a kitchen at your home, okay, if it is filled with sugar, then the container can hold some amount of sugar, but not more than that. That means the volume of container is limited. Now, on that same volume of container, we can add a definite amount of sugar, but not more than that. That means a volume. Now, let's know about the unit of volume. The SI unit of volume is known as meter cube, and CGS unit of volume is known as centimeter cube. Okay, now let's know about 1 meter cube equals to how many centimeter cube. 1 meter cube equals to how many centimeter cube. 1 meter cube equals to 10 to the power 6 centimeter cube. That means 1 after that 60 centimeter cube. 10 lakh centimeter cube. 1 cube equals to 10 lakh centimeter cube. We can know about that thing. Let's note down this in your paper with the help of pen or pencil. Okay. Finding the volume of regular or irregular object with the help of formula or different kind of things. Regular object, we can find the volume of regular object with the help of formula. We can find the volume of regular object with the help of formula. With the help of formula, we try to know the volume of, we find out the volume of a regular object. But how we could find the volume of a regular object? Suppose, let's talk about the volume of a regular object. Regular objects are cube, cuboid, sphere, cylinder, cone, this and that. Suppose, volume of cube. How to find the volume of cube? You are well known about the volume of cube. Volume of cube can be found with the help of multiplying length for 3 times. Suppose length multiplied by length. Suppose we call it as a L cube, length cube. By this way we can find the volume of a cube. After that we can find the volume of cuboid. Cuboid does not have equal length, breadth and height like a cube, but cuboid have a different length in different directions. Suppose we call it as a length, breadth, height. Volume of cuboid equals to length multiply breadth multiply height, L multiply B multiply H. By this way we can find the volume of a regular object. Now, how to find the volume of a irregular object? We need to know. But before that, let's try to find the volume of a liquid. Liquid have certain volume. Suppose we call it as a 15 milliliter, 20 milliliter. Suppose whenever you go to shop for buying milk, they measure milk in liter, either half liter or 1 liter or 250 milliliter or some kind of thing. They will give you so certain amount of volume of liquid. How to measure that liquid? Actually, for measuring the volume of liquid, we need a graduated cylinder or we need a measuring cylinder which is labeled from 5 ml or 0 ml to certain label, so that we can measure some needed amount of liquid over there. Okay. Now, suppose if you have a graduated cylinder, if you need a 10 ml of any kind of liquid, then you put a liquid from up to the cylinder. whenever you put the liquid from up, your eyes should be there on the level of the 10 milliliter, because our accuracy is 10 milliliter. Suppose whenever you go on adding, the liquid fills 1 milliliter, 2 milliliter, 3 milliliter, 4 milliliter, up to that generally 8, 9 and up to 10. It will be up to 10 milliliter. Now, what happened? How to see the accurate measurement in this measuring cylinder? Now, make your eye just parallel to the, in line with the liquid level. Okay. Suppose the liquid have some kind of formation of concave meniscus and other kind of convex meniscus. So for that, you need to know, you keep your eyes on the level of liquid. Now, after that, accurately you can measure the volume of a liquid. Now let's talk about the volume of any kind of irregular object. How to measure the volume of an irregular object? We can measure the volume of an irregular object with the help of same measuring cylinder. Suppose for an irregular object, let us take an example of a piece of stone. Suppose if you take any piece of stone, make a measuring cylinder ready, fill it with some water. Suppose fill the measuring cylinder with the water level of 30 milliliter. Fill the measuring cylinder with the water level 30 milliliter. Now after that, tie a small thread on that stone and put that stone on the measuring cylinder. After that, what happened? Due to volume of that irregular object, water level gets displaced upward. Now water level has been increased up to 40 milliliter. That means before it was 30 milliliter. Now by putting that irregular object, that is stone, for finding its volume, now the water level has risen up to 40. Now what is the actual volume of that stone? Now we can call it as the actual volume of stone as 40 minus 30, that is equal to 10. Okay. Now we can know about the volume of irregular object by this way. Okay, let's revise our today's class, that we are well known about area, we are well known about volume, we are well known about regular object, we are well known about irregular object. We know how to find area of regular object, area of irregular object, volume of regular object, volume of irregular object. Now in our next class, I will be there with a new term related for class 8. Now I will be there with the new term called derived quantity, fundamental quantity, derived quantity, fundamental unit, derived unit, and the explanation of some kind of exercise. Okay, now I would like to give you some work to do at your home. Please note down some work to do at your home. Okay, at first you write down, find the area of any two regular objects. Find the area of any two regular objects. Suppose you can make any square, you can make any rectangle, you can take any example of a square, you can take any example of rectangle, triangle, circle, whatever you like. Just find the two area of regular object. Now after that, question number 2, find the area of irregular objects by using a graph paper. For that, you can take one leaf of a small plant and you can study for the area of that leaf, because it is irregular object, and before you have done area of regular object, what will be the difference? Just try to find that. After that, volume. Third number I will give related to volume. Find the volume of the regular objects by using formula. Suppose find the volume of cube or find the volume of cuboid. Suppose length of a cube will be any length you can take, any length, breadth, height you can take for the volume. Okay. By this way, I hope that today's class is beneficial to the students. Now, I would like to conclude my today's class. Okay, till then, you listen to me. For that, I would like to thank you all and thank for the different institutions who helped for this kind of program which can be beneficial for the students. I request you to stay safe at your home, stay safe, stay healthy, and help for the needy people if they are in and around your house. Okay, thank you very much.
भाइ बहिनीहरू, तपाईहरु अहिले कार्यक्रम रेडियो स्कुल सुन्दै हुनुहुन्छ। कक्षा सुनिसकेपछि तपाईका केही प्रश्न वा जिज्ञासा भएमा रेडियो साथीको फोन नम्बर 023 563 037 मा फोन गरेर प्रश्न टिपाउन सक्नुहुनेछ वा हाम्रो फेसबुक पेजमा समेत प्रश्नहरू पठाउन सक्नुहुनेछ। अर्को कक्षामा भाइ बहिनीहरूको जिज्ञासाको समाधान गर्ने प्रयास गरिनेछ। अब आजको अन्तिम कक्षामा कक्षा 9 र 10 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरूका लागि कक्षा सञ्चालन हुँदैछ। कक्षा 9 र 10 का विद्यार्थी भाइ बहिनीहरू कापी कलम लिएर तयार रहनुहोस्।
Hello my dear students, very good morning to all of you. It's another Wednesday and here I'm back to you and I hope all of you are with pen and copy. Okay, this is Ishwar Ghimiri. I am secondary level science teacher of Dhulabari Secondary School. And students, obviously it's been a week we had our first radio class of secondary level science through Radio Sathi 98.6 MHz and today again we are going to have fruitful half an hour together. I wish and hope you all stick around the radio site tuning 98.6 MHz Radio Sathi with pen and copy. Last Wednesday we discussed about chapter measurement of class 9. Today we are going to learn first chapter of class 10, that is force, or simply we call it is gravitation chapter. So students, without any delay, let's go into our today's topic. Our topic is obviously gravitation. First of all, let's add some knowledge to your background, students. What revolves around Earth or Sun? I mean, what revolves around? Earth revolves around Sun or Sun revolves around Earth? Initially, it was believed that the Earth is the center of universe and all the other heavenly bodies revolve around the Earth. But later, the concept was changed. Nicolaus Copernicus gave a claim that it is not the heavenly bodies going around the Earth, but in fact, all the heavenly bodies go around the Sun. I mean, in solar system, Sun is the center. The first concept was geocentric theory, the theory that tells Earth is the center and other heavenly bodies go around. The geocentric theory was in cohesion with Christian and Hindu religion. They all used to think Earth is the center. Geocentric means obviously geo means earth and centric, yes, earth is the center. That was the concept. But later when Nicolaus Copernicus claimed it is not so, in fact Sun is the center of solar system, then they all thought that he is going against the religion. And very sad to hear, students, he was born alive. And the theory given by Nicolaus Copernicus is obviously called, it is heliocentric theory. First theory was geocentric, later one was heliocentric theory. Okay. So, in fact, the Nicolaus Copernicus was correct. Later, Galileo also proved that the Sun is the center of solar system. So, many studies continued, students, and later on, in 1687 AD, Newton, Sir Isaac Newton, you know, he focused his research to find the reason of motion of planets around the Sun, and he presented a theory. The theory called law of gravitation. In fact, it is universal law of gravitation. Yes. He said that the mutual force of attraction between two bodies is termed as gravitational force. In fact, in the universe, all the objects, they attract one another. I am attracting my friend nearby me. You are attracting your friend nearby you. A stone is attracting another stone. Planet is attracting next planet. So, there is certain force between two bodies in the universe. So, in the form of one statement, Newton gave the law in this way. Newton's law of gravitation in fact states that everybody in this universe attracts every other body with a force that is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers. Yes, students. Every body in this universe attracts every other body with a certain force that is directly proportional to the product of their masses and inversely proportional to the square of the distance between their centers. Yes. Then simply we can write this in equational form also. If you write F and proportional sign, then you have to write M1 into M2. Yes, F is directly proportional to M1 into M2. Here M1 and M2 are any two masses. So this is our equation 1. And in next equation we write F is inversely proportional to D square. That is F proportional sign and we write 1 upon D square. This D is the distance between centers of these two bodies. So if you combine these two, we will find out F and proportional sign, then we write M1 M2 upon D square. And finally, to remove that proportional sign, we need to add some constant. Yes, students, finally we get a formula that is F equals to G M1 M2 upon D square. And here the G is called gravitational constant. It is also called universal gravitational constant. And this G is capital 1. It is capital G. You know, small g represents acceleration due to gravity. You have learned a little bit about it in class 9 also. But here we have to write capital 1. Okay. And to give you information about the value of G, yes, the capital G has certain value as it is a constant. The value is 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11 and its unit is Newton meter square per kg square. Yes, G equals to 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. Okay, so what we see here, students, obviously F depends upon mass of two bodies and the distance between their centers. Then if two bodies are larger, force also will be the bigger one, and if they are far from each other, force between them will reduce. If they are closer to each other, force between them will increase. We can relate this to magnetism also. You know that if two magnets are closer, they attract each other very well because distance is less, they can attract well, force is more. But if you take a magnet a bit far from another one, then force between them will decrease. One magnet cannot pull another magnet very strongly. Yes, so we can relate magnetism with this gravitational force. So if we find here then what you find is the gravitational force between objects will be absorbed better in liquid. I mean, liquid on the earth is pulled well by moon. You know, earth and moon also are two masses. They also attract each other. So moon is always attracting earth's surface, but it cannot attract the land surface of earth well. Why? Because in solid, you know, molecules are closely bound with each other. The intermolecular force of attraction between molecules is more. So the force of attraction, that is gravitational force of moon to the earth, is not so visible on the land of the earth, but we can observe this effect well on the ocean, I mean on liquid surface of the earth. If you have observed somewhere, if you have heard somewhere that during full moon day the tides formation on the earth will be more, because full moon is observed from here and the effect of moon is more on the liquid surface. Okay, so obviously the letter G is gravitational constant, that is universal gravitational constant. You may think why it is called universal gravitational constant, because the value of this G is always same wherever you go. Universally it is same. If you have kept two bodies inside the liquid surface, then also the force between these two will be same, and also the value of G is same. If you take these two masses to the space, then also the capital G value is same. Again it remains 6.67 into 10 to the power minus 11 Newton meter square per kg square. Wherever we go, the value of G is same universally. That's why it is simply called universal gravitational constant. How can we define this universal gravitational constant? For definition, obviously we have just found the formula, that is F equals to G m1 m2 upon d square. If you keep both the masses to be 1 kg, like two masses, 1 kg masses are 1 meter apart, there are two masses of 1 kg each and the distance between their center also is 1 meter. If this is the case, then if you put the value of m1, m2 and d all to be 1 there in the equation, then obviously you'll find out F equals to G 1 into 1 upon 1 square. So finally it is F equals to G. So to define G, we can tell G is F. It means G is gravitational force. So how do you define finally? We can define like this. The universal gravitational constant, that capital G, is defined as the gravitational force between two objects. You can write, students. The universal gravitational constant G is defined as the gravitational force between two objects of unit masses, that are kept in unit distance apart from their centers. Yes. Already I have told you about SI unit of G, capital G. Yes, that is Newton meter square per kg square. Okay. So properties of G that make it universal, already I discussed. It is valid everywhere. And next, if you want to write in points, then you can add why G is universal. Number first, it is independent of the medium in which the objects are kept. Yes, it is independent of the medium in which objects are kept. Number two, it is independent of masses of the objects. Yeah, mass may be whatever, with whatever value. Like mass may be 1 kg, or mass may be 5 kg, mass may be the mass of planet and another planet, whatever it may be, the value of G remains same because it is constant. And it is also independent of physical factors like state of object, temperature, pressure, chemical composition, distance between objects, like this. It is independent of all the physical factors. Someday may be hot, someday may be cold. Obviously the temperature varies day to day. Nowadays also it is varying, but value of G never varies. It always remains same. Yes. So here we found that factors that are affecting gravitational forces are obviously mass of two objects and distance between their center. So you will be asked some problems to solve, like how will the force between two bodies will be changing if the masses of them will be doubled, keeping the distance same. Or it could be asked, if the masses of two bodies are same, then what will be the value of gravitational force between them if distance is doubled, or sometimes may be called if distance is halved. Sometimes distance can be kept same, but mass of one only can be changed, keeping on the constant. So there are so many cases, students. We find different forces for different cases. So by changing the mass of one or both object, or by changing the distance between them, we can get different value of force, gravitational force. Okay, knowing this much, let's go on ahead. That is, what are the effects of gravitational forces? Sometimes you will be asked. Knowing about gravitational force, you need to know the effects of it also. Okay, then we have seen many cases happening around. We may not know exactly the effects, but we are observing it. Just we have to relate it now that, oh, what I have observed, yeah, that is the effect of gravitational force. Let's see. Number first, the effect of gravitational force. Number first, we can say revolution of heavenly bodies around the sun remaining on their own orbit. Yes, we know in solar system, sun is the center according to heliocentric theory, according to Nicholas Copernicus. Yes, sun remains at the center and all other heavenly bodies go around the sun. What is the force between these two, or between these all the planets and stars? Who is there to allow the planets to go around? Who is supplying energy to planet to go around the sun? Planets are so big, Jupiter is even bigger than Earth. Still it is going around the sun. Who is pushing to it? In fact, nobody. No one is required here to push the planets around the sun to go, because there is natural gravitational force. It carries the planet around the sun. Next, development of tides. Already I discussed something to you. Development of tides also is the effect of gravitational force. Tides formation takes place, waves of the liquid surface of the ocean takes place. That also is due to gravitational force. Next we can say existence of heavenly bodies in different groups like solar system and other galaxies also. Not only solar system, there are constellations, there are galaxies, they all are maintaining their position in the space. How is it possible? For that also, gravitational force is responsible. Not only this, students, we have seen some satellites go around the planets. Yeah, moon goes around the earth, and also natural satellites are there. These also go around the planet. This also is due to gravitational force between the satellites and planets. So after getting the concept about gravitational force, let's go into now gravity. What is gravity? You may be surprised. Is it different? Gravity is different from gravitational force or what? In fact, not so different, but it is a part of gravitation. Gravity is a part of gravitation. We can simply say gravity is weight also. Gravity and weight we can understand as if they are same. Yes. In fact, you know, Earth is almost spherical, not spherical, it is almost of the shape of orange, we say. Flat on the poles and bulged out on the equatorial region, you know that. If you throw anything up, okay, let you are throwing one stone upward vertically, what happens to the stone? Will it go up continuously or will it come back? Obviously it will come back. Why does it come back? Is Earth calling the stone to curl back, like, hey, you don't go away from me? Is it saying like that? We don't know what it is saying, students, but obviously it comes back because there is force of gravity is there of Earth. Earth pulls anything on its surface towards its center. Okay. Every activity we perform is affected by gravity. So, to define gravity, how can we? We can define gravity like this. Gravity is the force of attraction. Gravity is the force of attraction experienced by an object kept inside the gravitational field. Kept inside the gravitational field of a heavenly body. Yes, so we can say gravity is the measure of gravitational force between a planet and an object on it. And it is the weight of the object on the planet. The force by which Earth attracts any object towards its center, this is the weight of that object. So simply we can say gravity is the weight of the object. Gravity is similar to gravitation, but it is a mere case, a simple case of gravitation. Gravitational force between two objects, any two objects, but although there is force, one object is not going towards another because the force between them is not enough to pull one another. In case of gravity, we can see one object is bigger, like Earth, and next object is very small, like a stone or one marker or one stick or a person, whatever it may be. Very negligible mass. So, in fact, stone also is pulling the Earth towards stone. Earth also is pulling the stone towards Earth. But what moves towards another? Obviously, stone goes towards Earth. Why? Why apple falls towards Earth? Why Earth doesn't go towards apple? Apple also is pulling the Earth. Earth also pulling the apple. Because, simply we can understand, because Earth is bigger and the force between apple and Earth is not enough to pull the Earth towards apple, but apple is smaller and the force between Earth and apple is enough to pull the apple towards Earth. That's why. So we can see some effects of gravity in some points if you want to write. Effects of gravity. Number first, it holds atmosphere around the Earth. Yes, atmosphere is there. Why the air of the Earth doesn't go away from Earth? It should not go. In fact, if it goes, then how do we respire? Obviously it doesn't go, don't worry. But why? Because there is gravity of Earth. It is pulling down. So it makes atmosphere of the Earth. It develops acceleration due to gravity also. You may have learned about acceleration due to gravity somewhere. If any object falls down, obviously it is falling with the effect of gravity. And when it is falling down, it increases its velocity, as you know. Yeah, when it comes down and down, velocity increases more and more. So that also is due to gravity. The increase in velocity, the force supplied to that increase in velocity also is due to gravity. Yes. So it develops acceleration due to gravity on a falling object. It also helps water to flow in the river. Yes. Water flows, we have seen. Why is it flowing? Why is it going from one place to another? Because there is gravity. Gravity is pulling it. Next is, every object falls towards the surface of the earth from certain height. Obviously, we know about it very clearly. So, gravity, I have already discussed, it is weight. Then, the formula that we have derived just before, that was F equals to G m1 m2 upon d square. If we write about weight, then we can write W equals to, we can make that equation in this form also, that in place of F we can write W equals to G m capital, next m small, upon r square. Why is it so? Capital M simply represents the mass of bigger object, that is mass of earth, you can tell. And if stone is on the surface of the earth, then the mass of stone is represented generally by small m. So in place of that m1 and m2, we are writing here capital M and small m. In fact, you are free to write m1 and m2 also, but if you write capital M, small m, then it will be easier to know that the bigger M is representing the bigger object, small m representing a smaller object. Just it will be easier to understand for that only. And here we have written r square below. Why it is r square? It was d square before. Because the object is on the, the stone is on the surface of the earth. If it is on the surface of the earth, then obviously the distance between earth surface, center of earth surface and center of the stone is r. Okay. Here radius of the earth almost will be the distance between the centers of the stone and earth. So we have written r square. So if you see here, weight changes place to place. See there very clearly, weight is inversely proportional to r square. Yes. And you know, earth is not so spherical. R value changes place to place. Radius of earth changes. Somewhere earth is a bit raised up, part of earth is raised up, somewhere earth is depressed down. So where the radius is less, there will be the weight more. Weight of any object, you can say. The place where radius is more, there will be less weight, and where radius is less, there will be more weight. So simply to understand, in polar region, radius is less. As you know, earth is flat on the polar region. So polar radius is less than equatorial radius. So we find in Antarctic region, in Arctic region, if you go and measure our weight, we'll find our weight more. But in equatorial region, as radius is bigger, our weight will be smaller. Yes. After that, let's go with gravitational field. What is gravitational field? The space around the heavenly body up to where another mass experiences its influence. It's called gravitational field. If you throw a stone up, it comes down. If you throw with more force, then still it comes down. But do you know, students, if you are able to throw up to that region, certain region, then stone won't come back. So what is that region? That region, the end of that region is end of atmosphere. End of gravitational field. So space around the earth up to which the effect of earth is observed, it's called gravitational field. Yes. So now I am giving you one experimental thing, that is guiana and feather experiment. If you drop a stone and a feather together, which will come down faster? You may observe it yourself by performing. Obviously, stone will come to the ground first. Why? Why not feather? Because feather has less weight and it covers more area. So there will be more air resistance to the feather. But stone the air resistance will be less on it. So stone goes down faster. But if there is no air resistance, if you are performing this activity in vacuum, like it is called a Guena, it is called Guena and feather experiment. That is coin and feather experiment. If you keep coin and feather in long vacuum tube and you just invert it upside down, then you'll find out both with that feather and stone will come to the bottom of the tube together. You may be surprised, how is it possible? Yes, students, it happens because there is no air resistance now in the tube. So G will be same for both. G means acceleration due to gravity. Yes, rate of change of velocity of falling object is acceleration due to gravity. G will be same for every object if there is no any other disturbances. Mainly the disturbance we consider is the air resistance. As both coin and feather are in vacuum, there is no air resistance, so they will fall to the ground simultaneously. Together they will reach the ground. Yeah, okay. You can perform some such experiments yourself also, whether it is or not. So simply, what do you mean by gravity of Earth, students? Yeah, you know the value of G is 9.8 meter per second square. If someone asks what is the meaning of it, what do you say? You have to say it means that velocity of falling object increases by 9.8 meter per second in every second. Yes, if an object is falling down, then its velocity is increasing in every second, and yes, it is increasing by 9.8 meter per second. That's why one question comes, you may hear this question later, or you may have heard already. It is asked in SE also sometimes, asking like this: a person falling from more height may get more hurt. Why? Yes, if you jump from one chair, then there will be no problem to you. If you jump from first floor of the house, then there will be some problem to you, obviously. But if you jump from 10th floor of the house, then what happens? Yes, you will get more hurt. Do you know the reason why? The reason is, if you jump from the top 10th floor, then you take more time to come to the ground. Obviously you take more time. And as you know, there is acceleration due to gravity. In every second the velocity is increasing by 9.8 meter per second. So if you take 10 seconds, then your final velocity to strike the ground will be 10 into 9.8 meter per second. So it will be 98 meter per second. So you will strike the ground with more velocity. If you strike the ground with more velocity, then you are exerting more pressure, more force on the ground. And you know third law of Newton's third law of motion. If you strike the ground with more force, ground also strikes back you with that much force, and you will be in trouble. You will get more hurt. It is only due to increase of velocity, as there is acceleration due to gravity. Yes. Now let's go to some concept about free fall and weightlessness. Free fall. What is free fall? As the word suggests, freely falling is free fall. Yes, it is. But what is that free? How is it free? What we call free fall? Simply, if you are dropping any object from somewhere, some height, then it goes down. Obviously it goes down. If there is no disturbance to it at all, this is called free fall. No one is disturbing it, and not only no one, the air also is not disturbing to it. There is no air resistance. If there is no air resistance or nothing is there as resistance and body is falling freely downward, that is simply called free fall. And during free fall, the acceleration of falling body is equal to acceleration due to gravity. That is, the object should fall with 9.8 meter per second square acceleration. But students, this is not possible on the Earth's surface, because you know there is air. it will provide some resistance to it, obviously. But on the surface of moon, we can observe this to be possible, because on the surface of moon, there is no atmosphere, so no air resistance will be there. It can fall very freely. Yes. And as the object is falling freely, during free fall, the object will experience weightlessness. Yes, not less weight, students, it is weightlessness. Means no weight at all. It's not about decreasing weight only. It is about complete zero of weight. So the condition when object loses weight completely is called weightlessness. We can say like this. And where do we find the weightlessness? Where do we feel the weightlessness? If you jump from some height, then you feel something scary. That also is weightlessness. You are losing your weight and you are feeling so. If you travel by flight, when the plane is about to land, that moment also you feel some scary feeling. That also is due to weightlessness. On freely falling object, weight will be 0. So, to tell you something about, not only on freely falling object, when object is at the center of the earth, at that moment also, weight will be 0. And if object is in a satellite going around the earth, at that moment also, the weight will be 0. Because at that moment, object is in free fall. Object is in free fall. So students, what do you think? If a satellite is going around the earth, can you boil water there? Just one question to you. Can you boil water there? No. You can't. Because the water there also is in free fall. If you drop a stone from your hand, can you expect the stone to rise up without any other effects? If no one does anything to it, then will it go up? No, it never. Similarly, the water molecules inside the satellite also are in free fall along with the satellite. Then if you supply heat to that, then also the water molecule won't rise up. If water molecules are not going up, then that is not boiling. If bubbles are not going up, that is not boiling. Bubble formation doesn't take place there. So, the boiling of water is not possible when you are inside satellite going around the earth. And weightlessness takes place in null point also. Null point. Null point means the point in space where the effect is 0. Where the value of G will be 0. There are two types of weight we can say. One is real weight, another is apparent weight. Yes. Apparent weight is observed when object is falling. Yes, when object is falling. And when object is falling with free fall, at that moment there will be no weight at all. So I'll tell you a little bit about this to you. If any object is at rest, okay, our weight is reactional force, students. How do we possess weight? We are pulled down by the earth, and opposite to it there is reactional force. To every action there is equal but opposite reaction. Reactional force is our weight, but that reactional force will be 0 when we are falling freely. When we are falling freely, the reactional force experienced by us will be 0. That's why we don't find our weight. Our weight will be 0. Simple example, if you are inside lift, just stepping on weight measuring device, you will find some weight there. But somehow if the string of the elevator is detached and lift falls down freely, then at that moment if you see down on the instrument you are stepping on, you will find out no value at all. It doesn't show any reading. It means it shows 0 value. Because you are in free fall, at that moment your weight will be 0. Your weight will be 0 means apparently it is 0. In fact, your weight is not 0, but apparently your weight is 0. So, okay students, I think we are running out of time. So, for today, I want to conclude my class. Next Wednesday, we'll meet again with another thing. I hope you enjoyed this half an hour time period. I wish you to be more curious and search the things that I have taught here today in your book. If you have, you can search the book with your elders also and find out and try to learn more and more and get more knowledgeable. During the period of lockdown, you may be away from the knowledgeable things. You are not getting enough things for learning. There is no teacher around you. Then in such case, we are here through radio classes helping you for your knowledge to enhance. For now, for today, that's all from Ishwar Gimire. Thank you. Have a great day. Stay home. Stay safe.
भाइ बहिनीहरू, आजका लागि सबै कक्षाहरू सम्पन्न भइसकेका छन्। कक्षा सुनिसकेपछि तपाईका केही प्रश्न वा जिज्ञासा भएमा रेडियो साथीको फोन नम्बर 023-563-037 मा फोन गरेर प्रश्न टिपाउन सक्नुहुनेछ वा हाम्रो फेसबुक पेजमा समेत प्रश्नहरू पठाउन सक्नुहुनेछ। अर्को कक्षामा भाइ बहिनीहरूको जिज्ञासाको समाधान गर्ने प्रयास गरिनेछ। भाइ बहिनीहरू, आजलाई कार्यक्रम रेडियो स्कुल यति नै। तपाईहरू यी सबै कक्षाहरूको अडियो हाम्रो फेसबुक टाइमलाइनमा गएर दोहोर्याई सुनेर थप प्रश्न हुन सक्नुहुनेछ। भोलिको कक्षामा पुनः हाम्रो भेट हुनेछ। लकडाउनका बेला घरमै बसी कार्यक्रम सुनेर अभ्यास गर्दै पढ्दै गर्नुहोला है त। तबसम्मका लागि सबै विषय शिक्षकहरूको साथमा प्राविधिक साथी करिना पौडेल सँगै म जिआर धिताल पनि बिदा हुन्छु। नमस्कार।
अहिलेको जस्तो अवस्थामा झन् त्यो भाउजूलाई हामीले बल दिनुपर्छ। अझ हामी छिमेकी भएर त्यस्तो हिंसा भएको बेला चुप लागेर बसेर हुन्छ? म त चुप लागेर बस्दिन।
के गर्छौ त यस्तो लकडाउनमा? कहाँ गएर भन्छौ? कसलाई उजुरी गर्छौ त?
लकडाउन भयो भन्दैमा